This week's episode was brought to you by Anthony Arizoli and Veoloski 432. Thank you, Anthony Arizoli and Veoloski 432. It's with the generous support of listeners like you that we here at The Whole Rabbit continue our research into domains that formerly only gnomes and mismatched socks were permitted to enter, using an array of flute whistles, advanced robotics, and numerous advances in our cheesecake manufacturing process. If you'd like to help us produce cheesecake so delicious it's capable of destabilizing the entire economy of Fairyland, or just hear the second half of this episode, then please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your monthly donation of $5, $10, $20, or $1,000 will get you instant access to our entire gosh dang library of extended episodes. But I'll send you, also, in case you didn't know, a 5x5 vinyl sticker of our Big Bunny Baphomet cover art. Yes, I know they're a little late. The demons I contracted to whoop my ass are on their way to make sure I send them. Well, really, they're on their way to whoop my ass, but you get the idea. I'm getting to it, I promise. But not only that, you'll get instant access to our Discord server, where you can hear our unhinged thoughts about what the hell is really going on with those space scientists. Pro tip, if there's a UFO invasion, I warned you. Life newsflash update thing. Both myself and Hecka are in the process of dealing with a lot of life stuff right now, mostly so we can streamline and focus more on the Whole Rabbit and adjacent projects. We have most of the next tarot episode written with intention of banging out the next entire branch of those, but without giving too many details, we're doing heavy lifting, life rearranging stuff, and the writing process might be a little fun or experimental, and hopefully not interrupted or irregular in the next few weeks. Please bear with us, and don't be afraid to give us some inspiration for show topics. It's gonna get a little wacky. On this week's show, written by Tim Hacker, we do the unthinkable and explain in earnest the overlap between hard science, specifically quantum mechanics, and magic, to be exact, in the form of Western Hermeticism as it was developed since the time of Jesus. Using the Kybalion as our framework, we explore each of the 7 Hermetic principles reflected in modern science research, while talking shop about how to use these overlapping ideas towards the pursuit of magic. Thank you and enjoy the show. I was watching a really good documentary about quantum physics the other day.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, but I decided to stop watching in case I affected the outcome. Schrodinger's cat was meant to prove how dumb quantum states are, yet it's widely used to advocate and explain it. I bet he's rolling in his grave. Or not. An electron was pulled over by the Quantum State Patrol. The officer walked up to the car and said, "You know how fast you were going?" To which the electron replied, "No, but I know where I am." I just lost my quantum computer.
Yeah?
Yeah, I checked to see if it was on. I don't know where it is. And be honest, I'm not really happy with my new quantum computer.
No?
Why?
Every time I do solve a problem with it, it collapses.
What the?
The wave collapse.
I think that one's my favorite so far.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Whole Rabbit, where we don't just bludgeon you with various types of philosophy that were never intended to participate in the same ontological ass-beating. Nay, we break out the photon emission beam generators, set them for banishing mode, and begin bombarding the slumbering nuclear chaos at the center of the universe with enough big pentagram energy to send the demiurge back into the cosmogonic egg from which he hatched. Dye it pink and hide it somewhere inside Max Planck's cavernous rectum. Because this week, we're discussing the frontier of reality, where the hard science of quantum mechanics overlaps with the spiritual art of Hermetic magic. In a way guaranteed to blow the doors off the simulation and reveal the Sophia standing naked before you in her full glory. Or at least, we can try. I'm your host, Luke Madrid, also known as the Hack Rabbit. I'm joined this week by the crowned dog of Diana, Mori-sama.
Awoo!
The lightning sparkle horse of the Black Lands, Hecka Astra.
Hello.
And the lead researcher and ghost author of this episode, Tim the Hermetic Hacker.
Victoris aut mortis.
So we had Julian the Philosopher on the show 2 episodes ago.
Yep.
And I feel like Tim wrote this episode specifically to attack Julian the philosopher personally. He said the word quantum, and then your brain, Tim, hatched the entire episode fully formed like Minerva springing forth from battle out of the head of Jupiter or something. This is how this episode came to be.
This is a book I've had for a while.
You were like, oh, he's going to talk shit about mixing and matching quantum and magic. Well, buckle up, buddy. And, to be fair, this is like that month in the year where the hosts of The Whole Rabbit are like in perpetual crisis mode. And I'm very grateful that Tim was here to step in and explain to us the hard science of where Hermetic magic and quantum mechanics come together. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you're not supposed to mix these things.
That's okay. I'm a rebel. We're all misfits here, right?
But we're going to do it anyway.
Olivia and Ethan Palmer assembled the idea of quantum hermeticism. And this episode in no way is a replacement for the book. Go read it. I have it. It's awesome. It'll be well worth it. Link in the notes or details of this episode. Hermeticism is one of the most fascinating philosophies and esoteric paradigms out there. I think the only one on the same level, in my opinion, is Taoism, to which the two actually have an unusual amount of similarities. The aura of it is potent, with the paradigm traditionally associated with the wisdom traditions of ancient Egypt, surrounding the legendary figure called Hermes Trismegistus, linked with the Egyptian god Thoth, the Greek god Hermes, and the Roman god Mercury.
The core writings are known as the Corpus Hermeticum, or simply the Hermeticum. Sadly, a lot of the Hermetic lore was lost to various tragedies, such as the burning of the Library of Alexandria, much war, famine, chaos, high cholesterol, and other forces that caused information to be lost to history. Huge amounts of ancient knowledge have been lost forever. What we have today is surviving fragments of Hermetic lore that have been stitched together by various parties over the years. For the longest time, Hermetics was more myth than reality, at least until the Renaissance, which put interest into the topic into overdrive. Now, to simplify a bit, the Corpus Hermeticum is a collection of 17 Greek writings whose authorship is traditionally attributed to the legendary Hellenistic figure Hermes Trismegistus, a synchrotic combination of the Greek god Hermes, the Egyptian god Thoth, and Mercury, right?
Yeah.
If we look deep enough into Mercury, we find some connections with Pan, which is fun because God in Hermeticism is oftentimes referred to as the All, which is what Pan's name means. Now, the treatises were originally written between 100 Common Era and 300 Common Era, but the collection as known today was first compiled by medieval Byzantine editors. It was translated into Latin in the 15th century by Italian humanist scholars
Marsilio Ficino and Ludovico Lazzarelli.
Mamma
Mark,
mia.
You're good at that.
and this was in the 15th century, so it's medieval, if you will. We like to say it goes all the way back to ancient Egypt, but it seems like the original authors go back around the time they wrote the Gospels then. It's funny because it's running alongside the growth of Christianity in a way. That's kind of fun.
You guys are going to make me read a quote from the Kybalion?
Yeah.
Okay then. Quote. The principles of truth are 7. He who knows these understandingly possesses the magic key, before whose touch all the doors of the temple fly open. End quote.
That's my wife. I mean the 3 initiates.
Thanks, Tim.
Oh, that's just the beginning. The thinkers and big minds of the Renaissance thought that the Hermetica, it was like legitimate ancient text directly from Egypt's deep past. And that is, until scholar Isaac Casaubon ruined that argument back in 1614, that the surviving fragments of the Hermetica were written in a later Greco-Roman style, which pushed it to being only around 2,000 years old by our modern timeline. So it went from the magical echo of lost Egyptian wisdom to being not nearly as old or Egyptian. In fact, in modern times, this is still the idea in a lot of circles, but there is actually a lot of pushback to this idea. Go check out the book because they debunk it pretty well. Like, a Greek writing style doesn't automatically mean Greek origins. A lot of these copies that were over centuries were lost. If you think about it, the logic doesn't make sense. Just because a modern book is written in the modern way we talk in English, but it's based on old stuff, doesn't mean the old stuff we write about is actually modern. And why would modern writers write in old-timey 15th century English?
Zounds, how dare ye, thou scurvy, beetle-headed, flat-mouthed fool! Cast doubt upon the king's history, do you?
Yea, verily.
Also, the ancients did not look at authors the same way that we do in modern times. The person who wrote stuff wasn't considered the author. The author was considered the source of the story or text or whatever. So the person holding the pen actually didn't matter. It's the total opposite of how we look at authorship in modern times.
So this is why every occult text is written by King Solomon or Hermes or Moses himself, right?
It's kind of like how how the channel that you're watching is not the TV, right?
Yes, and the map is not the territory.
You know, this makes a lot of sense when we consider how the Greco-Roman world thought of muses. At the risk of being too honest, it absolutely does feel like you have help from a spiritual somebody when you're truly tapped in and writing about occult wisdom from a place of inspiration. Whether you perceive that help is coming from Moses or Jack Parsons or just Viggo Mortensen, well, that's your cross to carry. In fact, that's what makes Robert Anton Wilson so fun, is like he gave up trying to figure out where it was coming from. And he's just like, well, it's the puka from County Kerry. It's a giant bunny rabbit. But the sentiment is the same, that when you're tapped in, it feels like there's something else doing the writing. And, you know, I think that has enriched the occult tradition.
It's like the wisdom is the divine source, and you as the scribe are a really good antenna.
It's like how they say Thoth built the pyramids.
Yeah.
Because, like, reason and metric and wisdom built the pyramids.
Yes.
So basically what Olivia and Ethan Palmer are trying to do here in their book, Quantum Hermeticism, is stating that Hermetic teachings, despite what normies and Wikipedia would have us believe, Hermeticism, the Hermetic teachings are not just recycled Greek philosophy, but legitimate bona fide wisdom of the ancients, stretching back to the dawn of human civilization, in the legendary times of Egypt and Sumeria as the two bright lights of humanity on Earth. Not only this, the authors also connect Hermeticism to modern framework in the coolest way possible, because a lot of what is in the Hermetica is found to be mirrored in modern quantum physics.
This is what you were trying to tell Julian so eagerly, and it's something that I'm open to. Like, when I first got into astrology, I was dumbfounded to learn that a lot of the qualities attributed, like, spiritually to the planets were qualities that I had found from just normal astronomy and studying the actual planets. So I've always suspected there's an overlap between, there has to be, between, like, science and magic. Otherwise, it sort of doesn't make sense. I've never been into the idea that they're incompatible. So, and likewise, I'm into the wisdom of Egypt and Sumeria, not because I believe they're inherently special, even though they are special, but as
They're great antennas.
yes, exactly. But that's what I'm saying, because others like Oliver St. John have speculated they're a clean resonant signal to a pre-Diluvian culture that used hieroglyphic language of some sort, spanned the entire earth, and possessed a sophisticated understanding of mathematics. They built pyramids everywhere. How long until we find out the pyramid thing? They're everywhere.
I mean, everybody likes getting credit where credit's due for being a great antenna, right? But that divine source doesn't belong to any one place, in my opinion. And I think the integrity of the signals are strongest in places like Egypt or Sumeria. And that's what makes them so special.
So if you drink the Kool-Aid and you believe that a pre-Diluvian society had some impact on ancient society, well, it almost goes without saying that they would be possessed of the knowledge of whatever it is we call quantum mechanics today. Like, they would know all about it. But before we can arrive there, Olivia and Ethan Palmer introduced the Kybalion, which is controversial in esoteric circles. It was published in 1908 from a secretive Masonic lodge, the Mason in question being William Walker Atkinson. He died in 1932, and this is according to most scholars, but it does remain to be absolutely confirmed. The three initiates who claim to author the Kybalion is obviously a literary device, not unlike claiming the book was written by Thoth or King Solomon, etc. And a lot of esotericists toss the Kybalion out the window as new agey stuff that's basically modern. It's not considered legitimate Hermeticism. At least that's about what half people think.
Yeah, I've heard so many people say that.
I think it's been speculated that Ledbetter wrote it, or some of the people in the Theosophical circle.
Yep, I've heard people say that stuff both on podcasts and just chatting in like Discord, for example. The thing is, that view is not necessarily accurate. Like, to those who have truly studied the Hermetica in depth, along with the Emerald Tablet of Hermes, one of its best features, what you find is an amalgamation of Hermetic philosophy and teachings formed into a way that our modern minds can understand more effectively. Because, like, if you look at the Hermetica and you look at the Kybalion and you truly understand the Hermetica, the stuff from the Hermetica is in the Kybalion, just in a way modern people can, like, really understand.
I mean, it's not a whole lot different than what I've been doing with ancient Egypt, where it's like I'm trying to explain it in a way that is able to be digested by people in modern times, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Exactly.
But the Emerald Tablet is different than the Emerald Tablets of Thoth the Atlantean. One is, I believe it's 8th to 9th century Arabic sourced work, whereas the other, which is the Emerald Tablets of Thoth the Atlantean, that's from the 1930s, and it's basically like a channeled work. So that's not an ancient text. And it's easy to get the two confused because the guy just ripped off the name of the Emerald Tablet.
But that's tradition, is what we're saying.
Right, but it's not the same work.
It's not. It's definitely
isn't.
not. It's absolutely not.
Because you look at Thomas Edison had it on his wall, actually, the Emerald Tablet of Hermes or Thoth, and that's where you get like as above, so below, like all kinds of like the classical Hermetic ideas are on it.
And it's also really easy to take something like the Kybalion and be like, well, it's just like some new age text and throw it out the window into the trash. And I also am a little on the fence with it because it's not that it doesn't have good information. It's just that it can end up with some people getting kind of culty about it, if you know what I mean. So,
Yeah.
you know, take what's useful, discard what's not. Maybe don't let it limit you. But I know there's some people who really enjoy the Kybalion. And it, in my opinion, is a really good source text to get into it, like to introduce you to the topics.
I agree. It's good for new people into like esotericism or the occult. You just give them the Kybalion, like go nuts.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, and I know there's even people in our Discord server who are like, this is what got me into this interest. And
Baby's
looking
first
further.
occult book.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
it's so good as an introductory, initiatory text for people interested in this kind of stuff. It's excellent for that.
And, you know, it could be used also as a reminder. You know, sometimes people go back to it and read through it again, but that is not the absolute depth that you will get. It's an introductory text.
Yeah,
in my
it's
opinion.
basically a summary of all the Hermetica mushed together, not in an in-depth way at all. But the thing is the original Hermetica, you had to understand it through intuition, symbolism, understanding of how all of these different paradigms like worked with each other. Like just reading the text as a newbie or like a normie without any of the deeper knowledge, the Hermetica wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Whereas you can read the Kybalion and you're like, oh, okay, I get this.
It's hard to go back to something like written for medieval audiences, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like, and then understand it in modern context because it's not written for modern audiences.
And with the Hermetica, were already like supposed to have a series of initiations leading up to each text and stuff like that. So you were already prepped to understand it, whereas like normal people are not. So the Kybalion as an initiatory text is amazing in that category. And like I said, here's the big claim of the authors
Oh, here we go.
that the Hermetic principles found with the Kybalion line up surprisingly well with modern physics, especially if you drop strict materialism and take consciousness seriously as part of reality, not a side effect.
So I'm going to assume going forward that if it lines up surprisingly well with the Kybalion, it probably will line up surprisingly well with the more ancient texts, whether you understand them or not.
These Hermetic principles seem oddly scientific as well. The principle of mentalism. Reality is fundamentally mind. The principle of correspondence. As above, so below. Linking inner and outer worlds. The principle of vibration. Everything is in motion. Wave-like. The principle of polarity. Opposites as degrees of the same thing. Nothing exists without contrast. The principle of rhythm. Cycles and tides are the secret order behind all things. The principle of cause and effect. Nothing happens by chance. Events follow chains of causation. The principle of gender, a creative binary of initiating, receiving, found in many forms, not reducible to biological sex though, more abstract. Overall, Olivia and Ethan set up these ideas early in the book, that Hermetic ideas can be treated as a coherent system, and argued for with models and evidence, not just woo-woo metaphysical vibes or blind belief.
Like, Hermeticism is actually science, Tim?
Yes, this book is all about breaking down the Hermetic principles and connecting them to phenomena in our world through a quantum lens. The authors state that even though a lot of what's talked about overlaps with what people call supernatural or paranormal, or even tie into religious like spiritual stuff, the book is absolutely not meant to be taken as some sort of dogma or spiritual faith. It's meant to be taken as an as of yet accepted form of scientific knowledge.
That's unfortunate because I already built an altar to Olivia and Ethan in my closet.
Gross. The goal is to make what's often dismissed as superstition or treated as a mystery feel understandable by placing Hermetic philosophy into a solid scientific framework, while also pointing us back to the one place we can verify things directly,
What does the scouter say about his power level?
our own conscious experience.
No thanks, Tim. I prefer reality be dictated to me over hot chocolate to the soothing voice of Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Ugh, barf.
Yuck.
He's the ultimate form of actually. He's like at the point where it like turns around on itself and becomes like an idiot.
When I was a kid, I said, if you dug a hole from the United States, where would you come out on the other side? And everyone says, dig a hole all the way to China.
Right. That's always the case.
However, China is not where you will land if you dig a hole through the center of the earth. Because if you dig a hole through the center and you start in the northern hemisphere, you have to end up in the...
Do you think Neil deGrasse Tyson is someone's form of ASMR?
Yes.
Probably.
In that spirit, knowledge over ignorance. Let's hop into the nitty gritty.
Act 2, Quantum Occult, the principle of mentalism.
The first principle is the most basic, but also the most profound. In this way, it is foundational to the other principles and can be thought of as the whole of where Hermetic philosophy originates. At its core, it may lend us insight into how our own inner worlds should be kept and what it takes to keep our inner worlds healthy and functioning in harmony with the world and universe around us. The famous axiom goes as follows.
Quote, the universe is mental, held in the mind of the all. End quote. This principle is also one that our ego minds rage against. We look around us and obviously everything is solid. You can't put your hand through a table. It hurts if you try, especially if you try really hard. So it's pretty counterintuitive. And to the average person with little in the way of looking outside basic stuff, this seems completely ridiculous. To the herd, materialism and science are one and the same. They're interchangeable. But that's kind of not true. According to physics, physical matter doesn't even exist at all. In fact, for many physicists, the principle of mentalism is reality, not woo-woo.
So yeah, I totally agree with this. The notion that physics and physical matter equals science equals materiality is kind of like a really shallow and incorrect take on what we're actually looking at.
I'm happy that we did the Ma'at episodes recently leading up to this, because so far a lot of what's being discussed seems to be right in line with the ideas of Ma'at, where there's no difference between the scientific or the spiritual, like they're one and the same.
It's synchronicity,
Yeah.
Hecka.
Oh, that also reminded me. I did want to bring up that like new theories have posited that we're in a simulation. So that's just another branch of this actually coming to fruition in the mainstream. And they're like grappling with it like, oh, we're in the Matrix, man. It's all fake. It's like the fact that it's fake or a reflection of something doesn't make it less real.
Yeah.
They think if it's not hard or like a hard surface like concrete that it's not real. It's like you have no idea what you're talking about if that's all you're concerned with.
It's a slippery slope to start thinking that way too. So
Yeah, like if it's not real, I can do whatever I want kind of thing. Yeah, totally understand. But just because even if it is a simulation, that doesn't make this, like you're talking, less real. And so here's a quote from Max Planck. Quote, as a man who has devoted his whole life to the most clear-headed science, to the study of matter, I can tell you as a result of my research about the atoms this much. There is no matter as such. All matter originates only by virtue of a force, as the particle of an atom to vibration, and holds this most minute solar system of the atom together. We must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent spirit. This spirit is the matrix of all matter, unquote. Well said.
Ma'atrix.
But the whole idea of like consciousness reflects, like this is just a reflection or a shadow of what's really going on, and that is consciousness.
Max Planck is thought of as the originator of quantum theory and is one of the founders of modern physics. Like the smallest length possible, the smallest unit of existence is named after him, the Planck length. And in fact, this episode's coming out on his birthday weekend.
Oh, happy
Woohoo!
birthday. Light is a tricky mistress. It behaves like both a wave and a particle, yet so too do related particles like electrons.
The two-slit experiment can be done with either photons or electrons. Keep that in mind.
If we consider these electrons, there are little bits of light coursing through the countless gazillion trillion atoms that make up your body. Schrodinger's idea of a wave function elucidates the idea that until something is measured, particles don't have definite properties. They exist as probabilities.
Close enough.
The double-slit experiments, including single particle versions, prove that the wave is real in some sense, because interference still appears even when particles go through one at a time, as if each particle is spread out and interfering with itself.
Like when you're looking, it goes through one hole, and when you're not, it goes through both holes.
That was our first date.
This brings us to the observer effect. When When you try to measure which slit a particle goes through, the interference disappears, and you get clumps instead. So observation seems tied to reality, choosing a definite outcome, collapse.
So that's like, oh, there's a probability of this happening and a probability of this happening, and then it collapses into one of the two things happening. Okay.
Yep. But it seems to only happen with conscious observation. So it has to do with us specifically looking at it.
Einstein famously hated a lot of this stuff. The notion that physical properties don't exist before you look at them seemed pretty much incompatible with the very notion of science. Science assumes that there's a real world out there with stable properties, regardless of if someone is looking or not. Invoking probabilities was offensive to Einstein, as it was to many others. So he came up with the EPR thought experiment with Podolsky and Rosen. In this, two principles are linked in a shared quantum state, so that if one ends up measured in a certain state, the other must end up in the opposite complementary state. The kicker is that you can separate these particles by an enormous distance, and the moment you measure one, the other state is instantly determined as well.
What?
Yep, it's what Einstein called spooky action at a distance. Einstein may be famously responsible for this quote, but it was actually something he saw as absurd and unscientific. He found the implications of quantum mechanics to be disturbing, famously stating some German stuff.
Der Herrgott verfällt nicht.
Or, God does not play dice. So his way to get out of it was to argue that the quantum mechanics must be incomplete somehow. There was something that we're all missing. He believed that there were hidden variables that already set the outcome in advance, meaning each particle really does have definite properties before measurement. We're just fudging the math and pushing it behind a curtain somewhere, he thought anyway. And to avoid anything traveling faster than light, he assumed those hidden variables would have to be local. Whatever determines a particle's behavior should be contained right there with the particle. Local realism, he called it.
Like, basically, you should be able to learn everything about a car by taking the car apart and looking at it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it all should be contained within the thing itself, not somewhere else.
Then comes John Bell, who created a mathematical test, Bell's inequity, designed to check whether Einstein's local hidden variables explanation was true or not. Elaine Aspect's experiments in 1981 are presented as a turning point. The results matched quantum mechanics and supported entanglement, meaning local realism doesn't hold up. In other words,
it's bigger on the inside?
Like in Doctor Who.
Oh.
It's a weird concept if you think about it. Like, let's pretend you're in a video game. Like, if you were to walk up to an NPC and, like, smash him to bits, you wouldn't ever find the thing that makes him an NPC. You know what I mean? You would just find sprites and stuff.
Code.
No, you wouldn't ever find the code. That's what I'm saying. You would never get there. If you just, like, if you go into a video game and you just, like, start beating up NPCs, you're never going to find the code. It's not local. It's somewhere else. You know what I mean?
It's in a higher dimension.
Yes, that's what he's saying. So Einstein's like, that's bullshit. It has to be here locally. It's not like somewhere else. And like, no. It is somewhere else.
So if hidden variables exist at all, they can't be local in the way Einstein wanted. That creates a dilemma. If the wave function collapses instantly and the particle's outcomes are coordinated across distance, then any hidden variable explanation would need to influence the second particle immediately.
Yeah, so at a distance, he's saying that the fact that particles like literally light years away from each other that are entangled will spin in opposite directions. So you can technically send binary faster than the speed of light. If you took a rocket ship and tried to go to the other particle, not even information or a rocket ship could travel that fast. It can't be local. There's something above it that it's instantaneously comes through into the third dimension and changes that other particle.
It means whatever is connecting entangled particles can't be a normal physical mechanism inside space-time.
All right, so long story short, the fact that the particles could influence each other instantly at distances that would normally take light time to traverse seems to imply that whatever connects these particles is not inside the particles, but somewhere outside of them. And not just outside of them, but outside the physical universe as we know it, because the physical universe has a hard speed limit, which would need to be broken for that to work.
I like to think of it as beyond, not necessarily outside. Like it's...
Yeah, because it's like the universe is contained within that sphere. So it's just like a bigger sphere on the outside of our universe that we're contained within. So then there's later experiments like Anton Zeilinger's 2007 test related to Leget's inequality, which undercut not just local realism, but non-local realism too. If neither version works, then physical realism collapses altogether. Matter doesn't exist as a solid observer-independent thing. It only does so as an appearance. I guess I'll sum this up in normie talk. Reality isn't real. It is a simulation. Things are rendered. There's a render distance. And as soon as you turn around and look at that shit, it's rendering in real time.
Yeah, when you go to measure it.
So, wait, is this like in video games now, the way that they can get a higher resolution is by only rendering where it is that you're looking at? So, like, if the environment has a car, it's not rendering the back side of the car if you're looking at the front side of it.
Yes.
Until you move around it, then it renders that.
And if stuff gets far away, this is called levels of detail or LODs. I'm not sure if this might still happen in games, but in older games, I know for sure different models that load in if it's in the distance and you can't see detail. So it's like a lower resolution model. And then as you come towards it, the real high resolution will load in as you get closer. So you don't really notice, like if there's trees in the distance and they're palm trees, you can see the shape of them but then when you come up on it, it instead of being like, you know, made out of 20 polygons, now it's like thousands of polygons.
Yeah, like it doesn't need to render the details of the leaf that far away.
But you're still looking at it. Even stuff in the distance can be like indeterminately rendered. And like you said, if you're not seeing the backside of a building or something, there's nothing there apparently. But I do feel like that human beings operate as we're like a group measurement or a group consciousness. So if someone's inside the building, it's probably already rendered.
Yeah, well, it's rendering it somewhere, right?
But like as we explore the universe and look at it and stuff, I think we're actually rendering more stuff to look at.
Well, this makes some sense how we imagine the modern world is slowly like killing magic. You know, just less magic in the world as industry continues. And it might have something to do with just there are more observers, more densely packed together, and sharing in realities that collapse quantum indeterminacy more aggressively, more rapidly. I think we'll actually talk about that.
We do.
Right.
Quantum gravity points to something even weirder than quantum mechanics. Not only might matter be less fundamental than we think, but space-time itself may be an emergent illusion, which saying that is probably attracting Einstein's ghost and fury. Please don't hurt me.
I'm ghost.
Olivia and Ethan say different quantum gravity operations still converge on the idea that what we call space and time arise from deeper information, rather than existing as basic reality or something built in. The authors bring forward the holographic principle,
Epic.
tracing it to black holes and the information entropy problem. Bekenstein showed a black hole's entropy scales with the area of its event horizon, suggesting the information in a region is encoded on its boundary, so a 3D world can oddly be described by 2D information, like a hologram.
I was
Yes.
not going to let Tim explain this without me attempting to understand it as much as I possibly could. So basically, I'm going to try and break it down because it's
I
confusing.
was going to say go for it because it's like one of those things I've ever learned.
It's very strange.
You think that Heka is a sciencey mind and Mari is a sciencey mind, and I've told you this before, but my mom was a physics teacher for colleges, like a professor.
I'm a
The
nerd.
thing that you're talking about, it reminds me of a 3D printer where it takes the code and that code is the same as what it is that prints out, but
The code is two-dimensional.
the code is
But
two-dimensional.
yeah, the
product
black
is
hole
3D.
goes backwards.
And
The black hole does spaghettification and like backwards 3D prints us.
And like, you're not going to get the code out of the thing that's printed, but you might get the code out of the thing that's printed if you do a 3D scan of that thing and then feed it back into the loop, being like, what is the code for this thing? Can you recognize what it is? What made this?
Exactly.
That's a really good place to start when thinking about this. Basically, in the early 1970s, scientists ran into a problem that threatened one of the most fundamental laws of physics, the second law of thermodynamics. Here's what happened. Stephen Hawking had shown that the surface area of a black hole's event horizon can never decrease. If you drop something high entropy, like a messy box of hot gas, into a black hole, that entropy disappears from the outside universe. But if the black hole itself has zero entropy, then the total entropy of the universe goes down, and that's not supposed to happen. So Jacob Bekenstein stepped in and said, wait, what if black holes actually do have entropy, and it's proportional to the area of their event horizon and not the total volume of like the whole thing? That way, when stuff falls in, the black hole's entropy increases just enough to keep the books balanced. He called it the generalized second law. It was supposed to protect thermodynamics. How he got the idea to look at the surface area instead of the volume sounds like it was based entirely on theory and math, which itself required a bit of intuition. Like he was trying to avoid an ontological hazard. I find that very interesting. So let me continue. continue. A year or so later, Hawking, who was initially skeptical of this idea, discovered that black holes are not completely black, meaning they do slowly radiate energy, which is now called Hawking radiation. Surprisingly, the temperature and entropy of that radiation matched Bekenstein's area formula perfectly. So now we have this mind-bending situation. The amount of information a black hole can hide seems to be written on its two-dimensional skin, not in the three-dimensional space it appears to contain. It's almost as if there is no deep inside the way we normally think of it. It's like whatever's happening is there fully encoded upon the boundary, which we think of as like a flat surface, which then we think of as like a hologram, because we're like, okay, we could take a look at the surface and understand everything that's in this supposed three-dimensional volume.
This would be kind of like if you took your 3D printed product and in 3D scanning it, the product was destroyed and got converted back into code.
They're saying that yes, and you can do that by looking at the place where the model disappeared from reality, like into the mouth of the hole.
And it left its code behind, basically.
Yes, you could basically figure out the code by the imprint it left on the boundary as it crossed into the hole. That's basically what it sounds like they're saying.
Like code written in Braille.
So I did my best to really wrap my head around this. So this is where the bigger puzzle comes in. So the radiation looks perfectly random and thermal. It doesn't carry any obvious memory of what fell in earlier. So when the black hole eventually evaporates completely, it seems like all the information has been destroyed, which quantum mechanics says can never happen. So you should always be able to reconstruct what the wristwatch looks like from the smashed pieces. You should be able to reconstruct whatever was burned from the ashes coming out the roof. But they're worried that the black hole doesn't work this way, that the ash is coming out the roof, you can't match to anything, and that means information is lost, and information is something, it's not nothing, and that's messing up the balance. So because the information capacity is always tied to the surface area, many physicists now suspect the information really is not lost as it goes behind the curtain. It's encoded on the curtain itself, and it eventually leaks back out in extremely subtle ways in terms of radiation. So it's almost like the inner area doesn't exist. It's really strange. Or whatever the skin, when I envision it, it's whatever is pushing out the skin isn't there. And so to cross into that boundary is almost meaningless. And the information that's meaningful to us here can never be lost there. It's really a strange thing. It's very strange.
And it gets even wilder. There's this conjecture called ER equals EPR. ER stands for Einstein's Rosen bridge, basically a wormhole, a tunnel through space-time. EPR is the famous quantum entanglement, that spooky correlation where two distant particles are linked so tightly that measuring one instantly affects the other. The idea is that these two things are actually the same at a deeper level. Quantum entanglement is geometric connection via a wormhole. In other words, if two systems are deeply entangled, that quantum correlation can create a kind of geometric bridge between them. It's treated as strong evidence that geometry itself, the connectedness of space, can emerge directly from quantum correlations in information.
That's so interesting. I've also heard it explained, if you, say I bump into you and we nod at each other and keep moving, apparently some of us are entangled at that point. If anything interacts, at least even once, it can be entangled in this way. So think about how many wormholes that is. How ultimately and deeply connected every single thing in this universe is.
Yeah, exactly. I'm entangled as with Mari. It sucks.
Yeah, we haven't even bumped into each other. Like you said, it could be just information that transmits.
I'm kidding too. Go on, Hecka, what were you going to say?
I mean, it kind of makes you want to pull a monk and go meditate on a hill and not interact with anything.
That's just because she hates cooties. But
you are you're interacting with the ground, the air. You're touching, the sunlight's touching your skin. You can't get out of it when you're incarnated.
No.
So.
And you never can get out of it, but you can minimize the effects.
And they teach. True. And in basic witchcraft, you have to have a link to your target. It's very similar. The stronger the link, the better.
Oh, having, the objects of them, or even their personal writings or something that they've touched or put effort into is stronger.
Okay, I want this doll, whatever I do to it, to happen to the person. So to make the doll more powerful, I should wrap it with hair from the person. Or if I can't find that, I'll wrap it with something that bumped into the person. It's very similar to what you were explaining.
Or if you're Lady Gaga, you want to put your blood in a perfume so that everyone used the perfume is entangled to you.
Oh, gross.
So they're all thinking your thoughts and doing your bidding.
Yeah.
This pushes us toward the really big claim that Olivia and Ethan were talking about. Our everyday space and time aren't the fundamental stage everything plays out on. They emerge from deeper quantum information, living in something called Hilbert space, the abstract mathematical realm of all possible quantum states and entanglements. The authors argue that a reality generated from information resembles a virtual world. There's a speed limit, light speed, apparent slowdowns under heavy load, time dilation near mass energy, a startup event, Big Bang, and rendering, an observation, measurement.
For those of you who are a fan of David Bohm, like me, that would be the implicate order of things that could manifest but haven't yet.
Man, I got like 8 of these little new shapes.
There's also non-local entanglement as simulation-like features, but what I like is that the book rejects the classic computer simulation idea like you see in the Matrix movies or like in modern podcasts. You know, it's done ad nauseum. And this is because quantum information, qubits, would be too expensive to emulate with ordinary bits. Any simulation would have to be quantum too, which means the deeper layer still wouldn't be a straightforward material bedrock.
Because technically in a qubit, you have the on and off state, the 1 and 0 that we're used to in binary. There's a third state, which is both and neither at the same time.
Yes.
That's the state I exist in.
So it's almost like a Boolean logic. Like once you had a true false on a machine, then you could start programming stuff. So the quantum, that's just another layer that's building up to this like ethereal realm that we're talking about. So in a world dominated by materialist dogma, modern physics actually points to immaterialism. Matter can't be ultimate because physical means in space-time, and space-time is treated as emergent, as in space-time is a shadow or emergent property of the ultimate reality. Long story short, the physical world has an immaterial source and thus is ultimately illusory.
Oh, weren't we talking about this earlier?
Yeah, it doesn't mean it's not real. It just means that I love the Plato story of the shadow in the cave because that's what it is. It's literally a shadow being cast. And until you like break through that and understand there's a fire burning and there's hands in front of it that is obscuring the light and making those forms, that's what's going on in our material world.
And we know the mind can't be part of the illusion because doubting already proves a doubter, such as Descartes, how he said, "I think, therefore I am." Computation, syntax, following doesn't produce real understanding. So consciousness can't be a mere program or process. If the world is like a virtual reality built from information, consciousness must come before space-time, not after. Modern science more and more is learning that consciousness doesn't come from the brain, but the brain is a receiver of consciousness.
Antennas.
Hallelujah.
This is the problem with many dogmatic scientism views, saying that consciousness arose from matter when more and more evidence suggests consciousness feels irreducible. Perhaps space and time, in its true fourth-dimensional form, is where consciousness originates, but it seems to transcend this 3D physical environment we find ourselves currently attached to. In this view, from quantum physics, we find the principle of mentalism taking on a profound analogical form, mirroring Hermeticism noticeably. The idea that the universe is mental is found in many modern theories of consciousness and quantum physics, which points towards the idea that consciousness existed beneath or before physical spacetime. There are 3 models the book gives us. Donald Hoffman's conscious realism.
The idea that the objective world consists entirely of interacting conscious agents rather than physical matter and spacetime. Our everyday reality is just a simplified user interface they create.
Daniel Toker's informational idealism.
A view that treats consciousness and reality as fundamentally built from information, drawing on information theory, entropy, and neuroscience to argue that mind-like processes are primary.
And quantum cognition.
Using the mathematical tools of quantum probability, like superposition and entanglement, to better model puzzling aspects of human thinking, decision-making, and judgment that classical probability struggles with, all of which are used to suggest that consciousness may be linked to quantum information, coherence, or entanglement.
From there, the book goes on to argue that because space-time may emerge from quantum entanglement, the physical world could be understood as a kind of simulacrum arising within consciousness itself. Combination theorem claims that smaller conscious agents can combine into larger conscious agents, eventually implying that the universe itself could be contained within one universal consciousness consciousness, aka the all.
Hey, that sounds like that great god Pan, and that's the devil. That's why the devil calls himself Legion. He says, I am Legion, I am many, cause he is all them little consciousnesses coming together to make one giant consciousness that makes us all have to work at jobs and pay taxes and die and make babies.
Making babies is pretty dope, though.
Until it has to come out your vagina, and then it hurts real bad. And sometimes the baby's head is smashed like mashed potatoes when it comes out. And then you have
All
a
right,
mashed
Cletus,
potato
settle
baby.
down.
Yeah, Cletus, cut. In short, the book tries to connect consciousness, quantum entanglement, emergent spacetime, and Hermetic philosophy into one argument. Individual minds exist within a greater cosmic mind, while the greater mind is also present within all individual beings. Does your brain hurt yet?
No, this is all on par for me. Like, this is exactly what I believe.
According to Hermeticism, mentalism can be derived from direct self-awareness alone. Following Descartes, the book says one thing we know with absolute certainty is the existence of our own mind. Because even if everything else is fake, the fact or doubt about it being fake or whatever means that we exist. Because without someone to think it was fake, well, there needs to be someone who thinks that, and that's us.
And there's a reason why I'm getting the off, and everyone can either believe it or they cannot believe it. I don't give two fucks, but I am telling you right now, that motherfucker back there is not real. And you can sit on this plane and you can fucking die with them or not. I'm not going to.
So, from this view, the mind is irreducibly mental and does not depend on anything material for its basic existence. The authors then challenge materialism by arguing that if the brain truly interacts with the mind, the brain must share some kind of substance as the mind, since interaction requires some common nature between things. But frankly, if all things are mind, well, you've got it covered.
That reminds me of Ka recognizes Ka.
Basically, anything we perceive or that affects consciousness must itself be mental in substance, because if it were wholly non-mental, it could never be experienced at all, like the inside of a black hole. Think about it. The conclusion is not that only the self, but the entire world we encounter must ultimately be mental in nature.
Like, I enjoy Descartes. Like, I read him in college, and I'm like, yeah, existentialism. I think, therefore I am. In his view, though, you can only prove your own consciousness. But look around, and the people that affect you, the people you love, like even your pets, or how the like sitting in a garden affects you, like all the animals and plants and stuff. There is consciousness everywhere. Like, to me, it's easy to see, but I could see that some of these guys that are philosophers wrestling with these deep ideas, they maybe could overlook that. But then there's, I'm like kind of a panpsychist, so there's also that, like, you're right, in that pan is the all, pan is the universe. That means all consciousness, not just yours.
There's something unprovable about knowing. It's not a tangible thing that you can prove. So
it's an experience, really.
Yeah, and of course, there's no way that you can personally prove the existence of someone else's mind or soul. It's like the 3D printed product. You can't just like dissect something and see there's the soul. There it is. That's where the consciousness is, and that's where the soul is, and we figured it out, guys. Let's go home.
But by looking and feeling the person, you know what I mean? Like, there's just something there that I can't explain.
This brings us to the principle of correspondence. And this is the one you see repeated ad nauseum by occultists and TikTok witches of the new variety, the squishy bunnies, friends of ours. The principle of correspondence is one of the core ideas found within Hermeticism and is easily summed up as above, so below, as within, so without. As the universe, so the soul. It is also the saying people despise who have a habit of clinging to victim mentality because it makes the individual fully responsible for themselves and not able to blame their own issues on anyone else except themselves.
Woohoo! I'm a big fan of that.
What it's saying is the events in the physical world mirror corresponding realities in the higher spiritual or supernatural planes of existence or dimensions, whatever floats your boat in terminology. It also means that the outer world reflects what occurs in the inner world of the mind, which is why you need to clean a room and stop taking so many benzodiazepines.
The most fundamental reality is pain. Yes. Is there anything more fundamental than pain?
And guys, this is what holographic entails. If the universe is holographic, it's going to be as above, so below, no matter where you look. These patterns will be reflected in whatever plane or level that you're looking at.
It's why archetypes are so important.
Because they span over not even just the micro or the macrocosm, but if you cut one tiny piece of something off, you can reconstruct like entire worlds out of just like one tiny piece of matter if the holographic universe is real.
To Hermeticism, this saying is not just a poetic metaphor, but is rooted in the same frame as mentalism, claiming that the mind already exists beneath space-time in what we call the supernatural as part of the same deeper inner mental realm. The authors then connect this idea to Carl Jung's collective unconscious, suggesting that most of this realm lies beyond ordinary awareness. Essentially, the main point is that inner consciousness, outer reality, and higher spiritual levels all reflect one another because they arise from the same underlying mental foundation. And if you'd like to go with us deeper into the collective unconscious where
We're gonna get mental.
we're going to get mental. We talk about the collective unconscious, the great old ones,
Wait, like Lovecraft?
the astral plane, psi phenomena, the origin of the pentagram, fallen angels.
Oh my goodness.
Are we gonna get through all this in this episode? Find out now. Go to www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your monthly donation of at least $5 will not only get you
The extended side of this tape, where
you'll hear the uncensored version of this episode in its extended format. You'll get the uncensored version in its extended format of every single one of our episodes dating back over 7 years, which is a long time. It's super long time.
We've only just scratched the surface. You have to listen to the rest. Do it, or else you'll be cursed by Einstein's ghost. I don't make the
Whoa.
rules.
We don't have any advertisements to like, tell you that they're gonna go away if you subscribe, but we can start making fake advertisements and subjecting you to them.
Until then, everybody, thank you, eat carrots, and shoot lasers.
Pew!
Buy books for dogs.